Hello and welcome to Betfred's football show. We've had 29 festive fixtures, a mixed bag for everyone. Only two teams have won all three games, Fulham and Manchester United. But we've got an absolute cracker tonight. It is Chelsea versus Manchester City. Paul Robinson is alongside me. I mean, this is a huge game on so many levels. Obviously, Man City for the title. Chelsea is just one win in 8.
Different
in the
reasons.
Premier League.
We didn't expect to be sat here, did we, in all honesty, this stage of the season, discussing Man City, Chelsea. You'd be thinking could be a title decider or European places, Champions League places. City obviously dropped off in the league. Good win away at Leeds, disappointing home draw to Everton. And then Chelsea, I mean, their run stems before the start of the World Cup. You look at the run they're on now since the World Cup. They've done okay. They beat Bournemouth at home. You'd expect them to. Difficult draw away at Nottingham Forest. Wouldn't have been too bad a situation for them hadn't they been on such a bad run before the World Cup. Thought the World Cup would come at a good time, a break for them. But in all honesty, you look at Potter's team, the majority of his squad have been away at the World Cup. So he's not had time to work with them. He's had very little time. He's got the same group of players back and he's getting the same type of performances out of them. It's a massive game for two teams for very different reasons tonight.
What's gone wrong at Chelsea, do you think?
Oh, that's a very good question. Change the manager. I think he's been given a lot more time than a lot of other managers would have done. You know, with Tuchel, he was obviously sacked. Graham Potter was brought in and they expected big things, big changes. The one thing that I noticed with Graham Potter, every press conference he says, I'm the first team coach. So they talk about transfers, they talk about players coming in. He's not keen to talk about areas that he wants to strengthen, players that he wants to bring in. He's concentrating on getting the players better. He looks at that team, that squad, and that's his responsibility. He's focused on that rather than what could come in and make that better. I think they do need to make signings. I think you look at the players they've got, you look at the midfield they've got, centre-half they've had a problem. Koulibaly's not been the player that you would expect him to be. Thiago Silva's not played every game, but they've conceded too many goals. But I'm looking at the side there, you know, Jorginho, Ziyech, Mount, Sterling, Conor Gallagher comes in every now and then. We didn't see him in the World Cup. Aubameyang's been a gamble for him. That hasn't worked. They haven't got an out-and-out striker. Havertz is doing that job. Goal scoring's been a problem for them. And I don't think they've had an out-and-out striker that's going to score the goals they need for a long time now.
Yeah, I mean, Sterling's moved. He's only got 4 in the Premier League.
He's been playing wing-back, though, at times. You look at the system that Potter's done. He's changed it. He's fiddled about with the system. He's pretty much settled now on a 4-3-3. But at times he's had Sterling playing out of position. Before going into the World Cup, Sterling hadn't scored. He was playing wing-back. And there was question marks over whether he would start for England or not. I think you look at it for him from his personal point of view. Pep doesn't often get it wrong when he lets a player go. He's let Sterling go, but there's 2 players this year that he has let go that I think he might have got wrong. Jesus and Zinchenko. I think he didn't expect Arsenal to be where they are now.
Well, you've mentioned Arsenal. I mean, this is why it's so big, isn't it? 8 points between Man City and Arsenal. Man City is still odds on to win the league. 8 points now between Man City and Arsenal. That's why this is a huge game for Pep's Man City as well, isn't it?
Well, Pep will be looking at the way that Everton played against Brighton and thinking, why didn't that Everton team turn up against my Man City team? I mean, Ben Godfrey did a job on Haaland.
Still should have beaten them.
Still should have beaten them. Had the opportunities to, but Godfrey did a job on Haaland and he didn't like it. I saw a side to Haaland that we've not seen in English football yet. Yes, he got his goal, but Godfrey gave him a kick in the first minute, got his booking, but then throughout the game, every time Haaland got a free kick, we saw him celebrate in a kind of a childish way that we've not seen from him. So there's a chink in the armour. He is actually human after all. So centre-halves will be looking at that, whether Koulibaly's looked at it, Thiago Silva's looked at it and thought, we can get at him tonight. There's a way of stopping him. Dropped points definitely for City at home against Everton. And to be that far behind Arsenal and still be odds-on favourite for the title. I mean, I'm one of these who thinks, you know, when's Arsenal bubble's going to burst? But from a Tottenham point of view and from my point of view, I'm looking at thinking, well, City will win the title. It's okay. Arsenal bubble's going to burst. But is it really? They dug out a result against Newcastle. Like you say, 8 points clear now, but City is still odds-on favourite. I mean, my expectation of their bubble bursting is turning more to hope than expectation at the moment because I think they've been doing excellently. But their resource will be tested with squad depth going forward.
8 points between Man City and Arsenal. 11 points between Chelsea and Man City. If Chelsea are going to try and get in the top 4, and obviously Man United are playing better, Newcastle are going great guns, Spurs have just had a good win, Fulham have won the last 3 as well. Chelsea are up against it if they lose tonight, aren't
Liverpool as well. You look at the points gap now. I mean, we talk about the 8 points gap at the top of the league. The league was won by 1 point last year, and City are 8 points behind, yet they're odds-on favourite to win the league. there's some value to be had in backing Arsenal. And when you look at Chelsea, you look at the gap that they've got outside the top four to get the Champions League places for Chelsea. It's almost unthinkable that they're going to miss out on Champions League. Can you imagine Chelsea playing the Europa Conference League? But that's a realistic possibility where they are at the moment.
And the stats are against Chelsea tonight. Winless in their last 5 Premier League games against sides placed in the league's top 4. But not been playing well when they've come up against decent opposition either.
They need to find a way. They haven't found a way of breaking down teams, and they've been too susceptible to good teams scoring against them. They've beaten teams, like I say, since the World Cup. They've beaten Bournemouth at home. The performance was okay. It was good. It was a better performance than before the World Cup. But then they went to Forest, and I would have expected more from them. They don't seem to. I mean, good teams, home and away, win games, regardless of where you are. I mean, it's always difficult to go away from home. But you look at the likes of Man City, you look at the likes of Arsenal at the moment. Good teams in form go away from home and win or get a result. And Chelsea aren't doing that.
Score prediction for tonight, then?
City to win. I think both teams will score. So I think Chelsea have got the opportunity to score the players that they've got. I think City will win. I think there'll be 2 goals in it. I think it'll be a high-scoring game because City will score first, Chelsea will open up, come at them on the break, and City will exploit the gaps. 3-1 City if you're pushing me.
3-1 Man City. I was going to push it. Right, before we talk about the FA Cup, let's just talk about a few of the other sides of this festive period. We've touched on Arsenal, 7 points from 9. They had to come from behind against West Ham. I thought they played very well that night. And they are 8 points clear. So even if City win tonight, it's still 5 points clear.
I know, it pains me to say it, but how good have they been? I mean, the only worry that I've got for Arsenal going forward is their squad depth. Yeah. Odegaard has been fantastic for them. Martinelli's been fantastic for them. Jesus, I know his goals dropped off before the World Cup, but what he brings to the team, his work rate, his effort, his enthusiasm, the defending from the front. Is Nketiah good enough to do that for them? I think he's more of an impact off the bench.
Because he's been out for a while, Jesus.
He's been given a big contract for the manager. The manager pushed for Nketiah to get this contract. And now, listen, he scored 2 in his last 2 games, so he's got an opportunity to take the mantle. I personally feel that Arsenal need to go into the market in January and get not a direct replacement but for Jesus, but somebody who can play that role, or a wide man who can play as a 9 in a similar way that Spurs had to with Richarlison. I think they have to address that. I think in the midfield, in the wide areas, they're worried about Saka. I think they have to address that kind of thing. Like burnout, not worried about his performance, but him and Martinelli playing week in and week out. The side's very much picks itself at the moment, this Arsenal side. And I think if he can keep all his players fit, free from suspension, they've got a real chance of holding on to this title. I've been really, really impressed with what they've done. They've given him time, they've backed him, they've allowed him to make big decisions, and it's proven dividends for them.
We're not even at halfway stage, Joe. Did we see the pressure get into Arteta a bit on... Was it... You lose track of days still at this time of year, don't we? It was Tuesday night, wasn't it? Newcastle.
I, like many others, are getting a little bit fed up with his antics on the touchline, coming out of his technical area, and the claim for handball in the injury time. I mean, and Eddie Howe turns around and goes, just calm down a little bit, and then they have a set to. I think you can see the pressure. Before the season, there was no pressure on Arsenal to win this title at all. Nobody gave them a chance. Yep. All of a sudden, they're in with a chance of winning the title, and Arteta's gone, we've got a real chance here. But you can understand the pressure of management, what it does to people. But Arteta gets too involved at times. I mean, the technical area, if that was Neil Warnock or if that was Sam Allardyce at the time, they step a foot out, they're booked or they're sent off. But he's getting away with far too much in his technical area. I'm sure the Arsenal fans love it. You know, to have a manager like that passionate, and these antics like that having the effect on the team from an Arsenal point of view. But for the rest of the league, I think he just needs to can it a little bit.
Talking about getting booked, let's talk about a couple of your old clubs. Leeds, first of all. Marsh was booked again last night, wasn't he? Where are they at? 2 points from 9. I mean, obviously, great result at Newcastle. They'll be disappointed, won't they? Their festive return, just 2 from 9.
Yeah, 2 from 9. They're in a relegation battle, Mark. They really are. I mean, you look at the league and you look how congested it is down at the bottom. Yes, they may be out the bottom 3, but you look at the points difference, they're still in it. And the amount of teams that are down there, they're right in it as well. The Newcastle point was excellent. They went to a very difficult St James's Park. Conditions were very difficult. The atmosphere was excellent. I was at the game. Defensively, they were very good. Offensively, they didn't offer much. They were hanging on at times, but they put in a shift which would suggest that the manager hasn't lost the team. The manager's got the team playing for them. I think the manager sets them up too narrow. I think they press from a too narrow a starting position, and they're vulnerable. But he's got the team doing what he wants them to do. Against West Ham last night, we're talking after the day after. I was again at the game. And I think they lacked a little bit. They lacked a little bit of self-belief, a little bit of forward creativity, a quality in the final third. 2 teams that were lacking confidence and struggling, but it was a really, really good game and both teams went out to win the game. But I think Leeds just lacked that little bit of belief. And at Ellen Road, they've had a lot of problems there. They've conceded 2 last night against West Ham. In their 3 previous games, they've conceded 3 goals. And I know they beat Bournemouth by conceding 3, but they've conceded far too many goals at home. Last year's calendar year was a record for Leeds conceding goals since 1959, the amount of goals that they conceded at home. So, like you say, disciplinary of the manager and the yellow cards through the team and conceding goals is going to be their problem.
What about Spurs? I mean, lose at home to Villa. Not great in the first half, and then put 4 past Palace in the second half. A brace for Harry Kane.
Massively inconsistent, aren't they? I mean, we've sat here and talked so much about them conceding the first goal, conceding the second goal, and then having to come back into games. And I spoke to Antonio Conte after the Brentford game, working for a broadcaster, and he was quick to praise his team's character, his team's effort, enthusiasm, and ability to come back. And he was hard pushed when you asked him about why is this happening. And it's difficult to put your finger on it, but it's happening far too often for Spurs to go behind. This Crystal Palace game, you'd hope, was a corner turned, if you like. But as you say, first half again, they were poor. But this time they didn't concede. I think the victory will mean as much as a clean sheet to Antonio Conte because his side have conceded too often first and had to come from behind. Hopefully for them, it's a turning point going forward. If they're to stay in the top 4 or got Champions League ambitions, they can't keep going behind in games.
And I think you can say there's no World Cup hangover for Harry Kane. That's 3 goals, isn't it, since his return?
Yeah, I mean, I saw Graham Souness talk about him as a world-class striker. And you look at his record, you look at the records that he's breaking and where he's going to be in 4 or 5 years' time. Yes, he's breaking the records because of longevity, because he's been in the Premier League and he's played a lot of games and for a high level for a long time. But you look at where he's played, you look at what he's won. I mean, there's a joker, you look on social media, you look on the memes, he's won an Audi Cup since he's been at Spurs. He's not won the Champions League, the FA Cup, the Premier League. If you put him in a Man City team last year when he was supposed to go, you imagine how many goals he'd have scored. Look at the goals Aguero scored. You put a Harry Kane in a side that's winning the Champions League, all that's missing from his career is an adornment of trophies. He's not going to get that at this stage of his career at Spurs. Whether he moves on or not, we know that Bayern Munich are very, very much admirers of him. But I think for him, from the World Cup, it shows the strength of the character because he had a big test. Listen, he missed a huge penalty which cost England a place in the World Cup. That is never going to go away from him. Everyone said, oh, how will he deal with it? He'll be okay, it's Harry Kane, he's fine, he's strong-minded. But we didn't know that because he's never had to deal with that situation. Until you're put in that situation, you don't know how somebody's going to react. He's proved that he's going to react in the positive way. Can't wait to play, gets out on the pitch. He did it at Brentford. He passed 1 test by playing, 2 tests by scoring, and 3 by being man of the match.
Is all well with Conte, as a final question on Spurs?
Who knows which way's the wind blowing today? I mean,
is he trying to put pressure on the board?
I think he was promised certain things, and I think he made it quite clear when he came in. It's going to take 3 or 4 windows for him to get this team to where he wants to get it to. He's been promised backing, and he needs backing. I still think there are a couple of players short. Like he knows there are a couple of players short. Right wing back he's not happy with. He flits between Doherty and Emerson Royale. Centre half, left-sided centre half. Longlay's going to go back to Barca off loan. Eric Dyer, Davison Sanchez, Romero's come back into the side. It's another area they need to look at. But with Conte, he plays the press very well, and at times he's very honest and too honest. I mean, you look at it early on in his reign when they played against Burnley away, and we all thought he was going to walk away at that point. So with Antonio Conte, you don't know, but he assures us he's happy.
Talking about pressure on the board, will the Everton board move?
They're in a real predicament. I mean, I was at Goodison the other night for the game against Brighton. They're the worst Premier League team that I've seen live this season. Defensively, they were so poor. Brighton could have had 5 or 6 if they wanted to. They took the pedal off when the 4th goal went in. I think defensively they're so susceptible. But I was surprised because they went to City. They played so well. They hung on. They got a result at City. Came into that game with real optimism. He reverted back to a 4-3-3 and they were just picked off so easy. As far as the board, I mean, you look at the manager, you'd expect the manager to be under a lot of pressure, which he is. But that game, that night, the fans were venting their frustrations at the board. You give the fans a lot of credit because there could have been a mass exodus from that stadium. There was a few that left, but a good majority stayed. 1, to back the team, 2, to have their opinion and to voice their opinion, which they're entitled to do. And most of those frustrations were at the board. So for me, if they change, they're at a situation now where they've got the whole of January. If they're going to change, they bring a new manager in, they give him the whole of January, they back him, and they try and keep him up. If not, they back Frank in this January. It's a real turning point at the moment, at this point of the season, because this is where managers get sacked.
A trip to Old Trafford next in the FA Cup. How do you see it?
I
think Man United will play a strong team, aren't they?
It's a thankless task. I think Ten Hag likes the winning feeling. I think he likes the feeling that he's got in that Manchester United dressing room. I look at that Manchester United squad and I can't see how they can't play a strong team. You know, he's not going to play an under-23
they're probably not going to win the league, and this is a trophy, isn't it?
It's a massive opportunity for them. But Champions League as well, he's got one eye on. But at the same time, he's not going to play under-23s or youngsters in this. He's got a strong enough squad. He'll rotate his squad, he'll make a few changes, but Everton can't do that. I looked at their squad the other night against Brighton. When they're losing, you look who they're bringing off the bench. They haven't got the strength and depth. I think if Everton are thinking of changing the manager, I think they've kind of left Frank in charge for this weekend because it's United in the FA Cup. We'll see how that goes type thing. But I think this will be comfortable for United, I really do.
What score?
2-0. We're 3-4. I think you're going to have to be creative with your bets in this one. Get your goal scorers. Wait for the team to be announced. Maybe a set play that always like centre-half goal scorer, set piece taker, penalty taker. United 2-0. Goal scorer, 3 or 4-0.
Live on BBC One Saturday lunchtime, Gillingham versus Leicester. Now, we love an FA Cup shock, don't we? But Gillingham are rock bottom of League Two and just scored 7 goals in 23 league games.
I thought you were going to say Leicester were going to win. Was that the shock? I mean, I've seen Leicester a couple of times. I saw them at Anfield and they were better. But I mean, they've lost to Newcastle, they've lost to Liverpool, lost to Fulham. And their budget this year hasn't been what he wants. The manager hasn't brought the players in he wants. They look susceptible at the back. But I mean, it's really hard to make a case for Gillingham. Like you say, they've only won 2 games all season. You know, whether that be league or whatever cup it is that they're playing in. Rock bottom of League Two, the worst team in the English Football League at the moment. I mean, it's very, very difficult to make a case. I think Leicester are a little bit short at 1-6 on.
Right, what about Sheffield Wednesday, Newcastle? Sheffield Wednesday doing really well in League One. Again, I think Newcastle will fancy it because if Eddie Howe can win a trophy this season, it'd be massive, wouldn't it?
We know that Newcastle haven't won the trophy. And you look at what Eddie Howe's done there. Are they overachieving in the league? Are they punching above their weight? Yes, they are. Are they going to stay there? Who knows? I mean, the third place in the league, an opportunity for Champions League football with them. But the FA Cup is a real route to silverware. You look outside the top 4 for other teams, which is why I can't understand sometimes why they don't take the League Cup so seriously, the FA Cup seriously. They've got a real opportunity here, but they're playing the Sheffield Wednesday side that are in form. Josh Windass, son of Dean Windass, scored a hat-trick at the weekend. Darren Moore's doing really well there. Chance of automatic promotion. But I think Eddie Howe, like you say, will field a strong side. I think Newcastle will win this one.
Liverpool Wolves.
2 teams that are indifferent at the moment. Saw Liverpool against Leicester. They were lucky to get away with the 2 own goals from Wout Faye. Wolves, I think the manager opportunity that they've got in there, Lopetegui. I mean, you look at his CV. Real Madrid and Spain, I think, were his last 2 teams. And I think it's a big ask for Wolves. And I think Liverpool, like you say, will field a strong side. But Wolves are a difficult task for anyone at home. But I'll go Liverpool to win.
Cardiff Leeds.
Big one. Massive game. I mean, Cardiff 20th in the Championship. They lost to Blackburn. 8-0 win. They've not won in 8. 5th of November against Sunderland was Cardiff's last win. But Leeds, Cardiff, there's a lot of history there. I played in the games against Cardiff when there was trouble with the fans. The atmosphere will be very hostile. I think this will be a close game because I don't think Jesse March will care about this one. I think
he'll make changes.
He'll want to stay in the Premier League. I think this one could go all the way extra time.
And finally, Oxford, Arsenal.
Oxford mid-table League Two. You can struggle to find a case, and they've scored 29, conceded 27 in 24 games. They're playing against the potential Premier League champions this year. Arsenal comfortably.
And who's going to win the FA Cup then?
Oh, that's a big ask. It's going to go to one of the big boys. I think you look at maybe Ten Hag at United, what he would do there. United, Arsenal, anyone in the top 4. You're not going to get very good odds, but I can't see a surprise winner unless you fancy a black and white Newcastle.
Well, I think they'll be going for it. I also think Man City will go for it, but of course they've got a tough tie in the FA Cup, haven't they, Man City? But that's it for this week. Please, if you're having a bet on the football, please keep it fun and gamble responsibly. See you next week.